And we're coming up on just about 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hello.
Injury on your hand?
I don't know. Not the first time. I know when I was in Chicago, I know how, but at the house I was just running around.
How did you do it in Chicago?
I broke a glass. You had one of you guys that just called me, and I was in the bathroom, and I just kind of went bonkers for a little bit.
Is that how you cut it?
It was cut before, but I think I just opened it again. I'm not sure.
Do you recall?
I was going there. Pardon me?
Do you recall bleeding at all in your truck in the Bronco?
I recall bleeding at my house, and then I went to the Bronco. The last thing I did before I left, when I was rushing, was went and got my phone out of the Bronco.
Did you ever hit her, OJ?
That one night we had a fight. That night we had a fight. Hey, she hit me.
Yeah.
You know, and as I said, they never took my statement. They never wanted to hear my side. They never wanted to hear the housekeeper's side. Nicole was drunk. She did her thing. She started tearing up my house.
Mayday, mayday. Gonna leave this And good evening, and welcome to the program. And of course, the fact is that you've been viewing the program and its contents for several minutes, even though, of course, that was merely the introductory segment. And what can we say? It's more and more becoming the study of American illiterature here, and I guess I'm the descendant king of illiterature, especially holding nasty specimens of illiterature like this stanky thing here. For those of you who haven't seen it, I was, relatively unaware of this item, except for I think the Racket had a little promo on this, proclaiming the scholarly importance of the piece in as it was in progress, because this Sanford guy had the insight to see that Cobain had so very, very much in common with that other left-handed Seattle guitarist Jimi Hendrix, and that was supposedly some sort of profound revelation while this book was in progress. And so, that's sort of more or less plugged in. It's not done with much insight. It's just done sort of to qualify him as the first guy to get a book out that harps on the Jimi Hendrix and Kurt Cobain similarities. In any case, there's only one really good thing about this book, if you get it, which is I wouldn't really recommend spending some outrageous sum, $13.95 on it, but if you do get it, if you do get it, this is the one thing that you'll be paying for that's worthwhile here. There it is. Great. On page 391, you've got my name and the name of the program there, right before John Lennon's name. Of course, Lennon gets, 5, 8, 11 citations. I only get one, but that's okay. It's pretty neat to see your name in a big fat book right there next to Johnny Lennon's. And let's see what's on page 345 while we're at it, while we're dealing with the subject of Nirvanian illiterature. Cobain's suicide attracted much of the same speculation, that is, in terms of, he's talking about Jimi Hendrix and Kathy Etchingham trying to get Scotland Yard to reopen the Jimi death as a murder investigation or as a homicide investigation. Kurt Cobain's suicide attracted much of the same speculation. In one frequently heard version, Cobain died not by suicide or neglect, but was murdered, shot by an unknown assassin for a reason buried somewhere back in the madness of his 27 years alive. Madness. I mean, this guy's English, Whenever English guys start throwing around the M word, madness, watch out. I mean, it's supposed to be all-encompassing. It's similar to the American usage of psychiatric terms, like disturbed. If there's ever any mystery or lack of comprehension in an American journalistic piece about Cobain, they'll just throw in that word, deeply disturbed, and that'll cover everything. Nuff said, right? He was deeply disturbed. And the English do the same, except they do it with the M word, madness. And so, anyway, the first of the conspiracy theorists into print was a Seattle man, Richard Lee, who aired his own public access television show, Was Kurt Cobain Murdered?, and speculated without foundation as to whether love was, quote, psychologically capable of killing. Lee was also struck by the shooting death of a Seattle police officer, Antonio Terry, in June 1994. Terry had been among those looking for Cobain in the days between his leaving Exodus and the discovery of the body, and may have been, according to Lee, the last person to see him alive. Later in 1994, Tom Grant, the private eye who searched Cobain's house but failed to check the room above the garage, claimed on radio that Kurt was, quote, drugged and shot by someone who wanted to increase the value of his records. He declined to give a name. And Anyway, I'm not going to go over all of the factual and conceptual inaccuracies of that half paragraph, except to say that it's pretty funny that now there are at least 2 books out that mention in detail the fact that there was this Seattle man, Richard Lee, who aired his own public access television show, Was Kurt Cobain Murdered? When in fact, the books are out, they've come and gone, they're obscure already, or not obscure, but rather obsolete already in many aspects. And the program persists, and these things are ready for the junk pile or the AmVet store, the Thriftco bargain book 25-cent paperback shelf is where they really ought to be destined, good for somebody's reference collection, but hardly worth going out paying full retail for, and probably not even worthy of acquisition by one of our city's better used bookstores. And as to the subject of illiterature otherwise, of course, you saw there a really shocking specimen of illiterature that I received in the mail just a few days ago, and it's postmarked December 9th. And I didn't bring it with me, because you see most of it there on the video anyway. And of course, the really amazing thing about it is that there's just no doubt but that this is a primary specimen of something that we've been real concerned about for the longest time. Now, I haven't really harped on this except to say that, we've had on this live program a little segment called Psychotic Viewer Mailbag, where we sort of go through some of the more psychotic viewer mail that we've come across, and most of it doesn't concern me too much because it's so completely incoherent that you really don't need to be too concerned about it. Anyone who's not capable of composing a good hate letter is probably not capable of carrying out any ill-stated threats that they may be struggling to put into words. On the other hand, this is something that's even mentioned in the compendium document on the internet and everything else, which is this is from the Seattle Police Department. If you're unfamiliar with this is the day that Kristen Pfaff died. This is from the location where Antonio Terry was only 10 or 11 days before, shortly before his death. That is, the return address here is in fact the South Precinct of the Seattle Police Department, so that speaks greatly of its authenticity as a document from police officers, Seattle police officers who are threatening me with murder because of my public probe into Kurt Cobain's death. And so that one did concern us greatly because, of course, especially, when it comes from the police above and beyond anyone else are the people in town who have the ability to carry out these threats. I mean, when it comes to murder is their business, The Seattle Racket may call itself, or may have called itself at times, Murder Incorporated, and so did the, Meyer Lansky, Bugsy Siegel people, but in any town where you may reside in the United States and many other places where it's quite obvious that the police department is corrupt, you really, really have to worry about any ventures that they may start to make into the murder business, because they are the people that can take it from a small cottage business into an important local industry. And that is when that phenomenon of the police engaging in murder for hire, political murder, murder for intimidation purposes, for business entities or whatever it may be, crops up. For instance, it's very prevalent in New Orleans, so much so that even the FBI has become involved, if you can believe that. It really is a concern for everyone. It really is a signal that something is terribly wrong in a city when you start to observe that phenomenon. So it's important to me, and it's important to everyone, really, even if you don't give a hang about me personally. And you know, the other really amazing thing in the way of hate mail, death mail, anything else that would violate Section 876 of Title 18 of the U.S. Code, United States federal law, and is punishable by up to 5 years in prison, is that why is it that someone is risking 5 years in prison to send me this magazine paste-up of a death threat? It's really shocking. It's not just that they make the threat, but that they should be fully aware of the extreme illegality of doing such a thing. And let me make one point absolutely, perfectly crystal clear here, in case you failed to understand the nature of the note from its content, which is either this is from Mr. David Grohl, the sixth drummer in the band called Nirvana, or it's from someone who's acting at the behest of David Grohl, as sixth drummer in the band Nirvana, or it's some person who's extremely cleverly conceived a death threat which looks like it's coming from Dave Grohl, ex-drummer of Nirvana, and had remarkable insight about how to forge such a document, which is almost inconceivably clever. So the likelihood that this is in some way from Mr. David Grohl, ex-Nirvanian, is actually fairly substantially high. What am I saying? Dave Grohl committed a federal felony and sent me a letter proposing that my hands are going to be broken and that I will be beaten to death if I don't stop looking into this case? Well, it looks a hell of a lot like it. And the explanation that I could get into on this would be extremely long, and I really don't want to venture into that right at this moment. But, you know, there are two distinct possibilities. Either this letter is coming from the Dave Art Department, basically Dave's people in Seattle, or it's coming from someone who's making it look like it's from Dave's art department. And the fact is, I called Dave's art department yesterday after airing this material, you know, really just basically minutes after the program ended last night, because it's something I overlooked doing. And, you know, the guy in Dave's art department said that no way he did it. So let's make it perfectly clear there was a denial, a denial, a denial. One of the problems with the denial was, though, that it was not entirely convincing. You know, Dave's art department, this guy, is a professional caricaturist. He gets published in major magazines as a caricaturist. And if you notice there, one of the caricatures has Gary Locke, large head, teeny tiny body. It's actually like a kid's body playing with blocks and balls and stuff. And I asked the guy, I said, isn't this precisely what you do, though? You do caricatures of politicians with big heads and tiny bodies. And he said, no, 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 I'm not a caricaturist. I don't do that. And denied that he did that sort of thing. I said, but wait a second. I was in your studio. I saw your work. It was a year ago, but I remember it clearly. This is precisely what you do. You do big heads of politicians on little tiny bodies. Isn't that exactly what you do? And he said, oh, well, now that you mention it, now that you describe it that way, yeah, I do. And I said, well, you know, you're an artist who does these caricatures of politicians. Doesn't that mean that you're a guy that, like, spends all or most of his time with a stack of magazines and a pair of scissors cutting them up and pasting and saving the good faces that you want to save as models for your caricatures, which are featured in national magazines? Isn't that precisely like what you do for a living, is cut up magazines and hold on to little pieces of them? And he says, no, no, no. As a matter of fact, I don't even subscribe to any magazines. I said, what do you do when you have to do a caricature of, you know, Mikhail Gorbachev? He's not in the papers every day. You can't just go out and buy pictures of Mikhail Gorbachev at the local newsstand. And he claimed he had a clipping service. I mean, anyway, I don't want to say that this guy is necessarily guilty, although the point is that it looks a hell of a lot like Dave's art department is completely guilty of this. Now, it may be, and this is the very distinct possibility that I'd want to emphasize, is that he didn't do it. He's not guilty. He's not the artist, the person who's obviously like art school trained that put this thing together, but that someone has set him up so that he looks like he's guilty. And this is all a very clever scheme to get me to come on the air and point the finger of guilt at this particular individual so that months later or tomorrow or in a few weeks or whatever, Dave Grohl, Courtney Love, whoever, don't want to institute a lawsuit against me for defaming them. So they'll say, poor little struggling artist who works for us freelance part-time is being defamed by Mr. Lee on public access television, and therefore we're sponsoring a lawsuit by him. Now, all of the disclaimers I've just issued on this make a lawsuit, I think, quite impossible. What I'm saying is it looks a hell of a lot like this guy is guilty of something that should get him 5 years in prison, or conceivably could. On the other hand, it's equally possible that it's all an elaborate setup just to try to get me into some legal corner. On the other hand, but do you understand what I'm saying here is that this elaborate scheme, whatever the hell it is, looks a lot like someone has gone to some great effort to commit a really significant felony in trying to motivate me to do one thing or another. And the last thing I can say is that the least likely possibility of all, unless these people are completely stupid, is that I'm going to be intimidated by this stupid letter. I mean, you know, I mean, when you've gotten death threats from the actual police department, 1,000 guys driving around town with, you know, 15 rounds in the clip, each of them in a big shotgun in the front seat, all of a sudden I'm going to start getting intimidated by guys that have been to art school. Ooh, you know. Or all of a sudden I'm going to be scared because maybe Dave Grohl's after me. Ooh, he's got satanic tattoos, and you know, he's in the record industry. Ooh, I'm so scared, you know. Believe me, you know, the police, getting murdered by the police is a very significant issue, not only for me, but really for anybody who lives in a corrupt city. And when you've got that sort of problem on your mind, the least likely thing that you're going to be afraid of is rock musicians and guys that have been to art school, you know. Anyway, I've never really discussed my previous meeting with the Dave Art Department, and I'm not going to go into the whole thing now. It'll be published one of these days in some form or another. But you see that, you know, not only are we dealing with people who are willing to commit felonies, whoever these people are who wrote this letter, but, you know, also on some deep and abiding level, we're really dealing with people who are so stupid that you would almost tend to believe the most obvious case. The most obvious case is Dave just dials up the art department and says, well, are you busy? You got time to knock out a hate letter for that guy on public access? No, of course, I can't say that that's the compelling case, but I'm not going to shy away from saying that it is a distinct possibility, despite the fact that the individual in question did explicitly deny this to me yesterday and tried to be friendly about denying it. So let's grant him the possibility that he merely, in fact, was set up to look like he did it. Again, no one could possibly have the insight outside of the Grohl infrastructure, the Grohl business concerns locally here, to know that this guy puts big politician heads on little bodies. So if it was a setup, it appears that the setup was from inside Camp Grohl and not from outside. And I'll issue the same offer to Grohl on the air, because there is something of a possibility that he's watching this program, because I, you know, discussed this with his guy for over an hour last night, that he ought to watch the program, he ought to get himself informed. The idea that he's in Seattle making this new album and he's really like so deeply into his music that he would be unaware of our fine television program and our fine website and everything that it encompasses is ludicrous. And we're going on 3 years now, Mr. Grohl, and about all I've heard you say about Kurt Cobain is that he really wasn't all that punk, because when punks would spit on him at concerts, he had a negative reaction to that. I didn't find that so tasteful. Oh, and then also in some of the you know, big market fanzine type publications, which are basically running like press release type material from rock stars. There have been a few blatherings about how much Dave loved Kurt and all of that nonsense. But even that was 2 years in the waiting. That is, we didn't hear those sorts of statements, even those sorts of public relations type statements, from Mr. Grohl for about 2 years, which is an issue in itself. So, Mr. Grohl, if you got something to say, don't get your art school guys to do it, you know. And if you're completely out of the loop on, you know, this violation of Section 876 of Title 18, punishable by 5 years in federal prison, make that clear, you know. It looks a hell of a lot like you are involved. And we can just forget all of that. It's just a crummy piece of mail after all. What I really would like Mr. Dave Grohl to do is address the real issues. The real issues of what he knows and what he believes, and in what way he has profited from the murder of Mr. Kurt Cobain. And that is all for this evening. Our challenge stands. Obviously, Grohl can talk to me, he can talk to someone else, but let's hear, Mr. Grohl, just precisely what you do think about the murder of your presumed friend, Kurt Cobain. Let's hear it. It's going on 3 years. Let's hear it now. And thanks for joining us. Please do so again. Standing on the stairs, cold, cold morning. Ghostly image of fear. Mayday, mayday.